Hey guys, what's happening? So following the events of Venom War, the Venom symbiote is back with a new host. And going into this, very quickly you can tell that Al Ewing is having a lot of fun, with so many people trying to figure out who this new host most likely is, which plays a huge part in how this story begins. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so jumping right in, this starts out in a courtroom where we find Madame Masque, who's still facing charges from Marvel's Gang War event, which took place in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, issues 39 through 44, and there was a ton of tie-ins as well. But during this event, Madame Masque had nearly taken over New York after staging a sequence of chaotic events at Tombstone's daughter's wedding, with her knowing that Tombstone was going to be shot, so she manipulated the events around it and faked her death, which really set the stage for every gang in New York to vie for power. But with the way Ewing handles this, it's like your classic whodunit, where at first we're introduced to the people who could possibly be the new Venom, with Madame Masque being suspect number 1, and right after that Luke Cage, the mayor of New York, he's suspect number 2, and it almost reminds me of those whodunit movies, where in the beginning it'll freeze frame on the different characters, so as you're watching you'll be like, okay, I'll remember this guy. And I think it's pretty cool to see Ewing have fun with it in that way. But another thing that happens here is, like, during the trial the prosecutor calls Madame Masque a symbiote, so right away the defense attorney, he's like, objection, and it's sustained by the judge because Madame Masque is not an actual symbiote. But the prosecutor just goes on to say that he was being metaphorical, because he would never call her a literal piece of slime. But then he turns to the jury and he says, but didn't she come to this city from her own world, her world of crime, to feed on innocent people? So the defense attorney, he objects again, because the prosecution's clearly trying to make the gang war from 1 year ago equate to the Venom War from 3 months ago, just to pull the emotion out of the jury and nearly make it seem like she's on trial for every disaster that's happened recently. And so of course this objection is also sustained, as the judge goes on to remind the defense attorney and the prosecutor to show some decorum here, and not just because they're in the New York criminal court, but also because they are live on air. And like I mentioned before, Mayor Luke Cage is here, and there's a moment where he's talking to Robbie Robertson, where Luke Cage just calls this whole thing out for what it is. Because on one hand, Robbie's like, you know, they just want to televise it so they can give families closure. But Luke's like, nah, this is about bread and circuses. And I'm over here like, yeah, just like the Jake Paul Tyson fight. And I mean, not just like, but it's all about clickbait and manipulation. But for a moment here, Luke asks Robbie, who's next to get trialed by media? My kid? Yours? And right after saying that, Luke remembers how Robbie's son Randy got caught up in gang war, so Robbie tells Luke not to worry about it because Randy's still alive. But in addition to Luke Cage being suspect number 2 in this mystery of who the all-new Venom is, there's a moment here where Robbie tells Luke if things go left in this trial, Madame Masque could walk free, and he's not going to just watch that happen, not without doing what's in his power to stop it. And with Robbie talking like that, it's earned him the spot as suspect number 3, because he has motive and he's expressed the will to take action. And to take things up a notch, they're then met by the arrival of Rick Jones, who has arguably been the busiest supporting character in Marvel Comics in the past 60 years. Because this guy went from being saved by Bruce in the Gamma Explosion to later becoming Bruce's close friend. He was also a Hulk at one point, known as A.I.M, which I liked, by the way, just want to put that out there. And he even mentions how at one point he was a Bucky Barnes wannabe. And man, who can forget how Ewing did him dirty in Immortal Hulk? But yeah, we'd be here all day talking about the adventures of Rick Jones, with these being only a few examples because there are so many more. But also with Rick showing up here, he's wearing this Marvel Comics shirt, and I'm not really sure if this is something just to poke fun, or if it's connected to what we've seen in Immortal Thor recently, which is also written by Al Ewing, where Dario Agger purchased the rights to Thor's story, and possibly Marvel Comics itself, so with the help of Enchantress he can make his own version of Thor. And I mean, there's quite a bit more going on, and I got a link in the description for anyone who wants to check that out for more. But as it stands in the here and now, I'm not really sure if Ewing is going to have these stories cross over at any point. But nonetheless, when Rick Jones shows up, he's suspect number 4, because he's Rick Jones. But also during this time, Dr. Harlan McNeil is called to the stand, with him being the division head of Advanced Idea Mechanics, better known as A.I.M. And this guy, his doctorate focused on body language. So for example, with everyone at A.I.M wearing the same suit, he could still tell one individual apart from the other by observing their body language, which for each individual was like their own fingerprint. So for a moment here, he's asked by the prosecutor to eliminate all doubt and confirm that it's Madame Masque who's present here in the courtroom. So Dr. McNeil confirms it. And this is pretty important in the here and now, since Madame Masque has faked her identity and her death prior to this. So it's important now that we know that it's actually her. But the next thing we see is Dr. McNeil's glasses light up, saying scan confirmed. As he goes on to say, this farce of a trial is no longer necessary. We have human and electronic confirmation, sir. Translocate on my signal, which is then when Andrew Forson, the leader of A.I.M, shows up. And in case you guys are wondering what happened to MODOK, I've got a couple of links in the description where you can see what happened with him and Starship Hulk, as well as Thor versus Mythos. But as soon as Forson shows up, he makes it clear that he's here to send a message, and more or less make the world understand how powerful A.I.M truly is. And really, it's right here where our 4 suspects get real suspicious. Because right away, Luke tells Rick Jones to get Robbie out of there. But then Robbie's like, Luke, wait, I can. And I'm like, you can what, Robbie? But Rick grabs Robbie so they can head for the exit. So Forson, who doesn't want anyone to leave, he starts to materialize between them and the door. So Robbie's like, wait, he's materializing? Only for Rick to tell him that we can get through before he materializes. And that's precisely what they do. And once they're out, Rick tells Robbie they need to split up to find a cop or a phone or something. So they split up, and right here Robbie's like, sure, I'll find something. And it's kind of like, okay, Mr. Ewing, I see what you're doing. Because next, when Luke Cage goes to attack this guy, Forson absorbs the kinetic energy and just blasts Luke out the window with it. And as he's falling, Luke is just like, okay, time to really go to work. Which sounds like the equivalent to saying it's morphin' time. And to take it up another notch is here where they find out that Madame Masque is gone, only to next be met by the arrival of all new Venom. And again, Ewing, he's not trying to hide that he's having fun here, because leading up to this, when everything escalated, all 4 of the leading suspects have left the courtroom by one way or another. So all new Venom engages with these guys, showing off these different moves. And it's real important because once again, Dr. McNeil is also here and he's watching all of this. And when one of these guys go at all new Venom with a kinetic charged attack, he says, I'm gonna take Brock's head off. But right here, Dr. McNeil is like, but that's not Brock. And I think it's just genius the way that Ewing uses Dr. McNeil to not only confirm that this isn't Eddie Brock, but also have him go on to say that he knows every Venom's fighting style. Both Brock's, Gargan, Thompson, Price, and if any of them were in this suit, he would know and advise his boss accordingly. But he tells Forson here, whoever is piloting that symbiote has never been seen in it before. But when they go at Venom with this kinetically charged attack, they create a symbiote airbag to absorb all that kinetic energy so they don't have to. And I'm not gonna front here, I thought all new Venom was just gonna absorb it, just so he can send it right back with the Popeye Kami-ha! But that's not what happened. It was just the symbiote airbag. But again, with Dr. Harlan McNeil watching, he goes on to mention that Venom's moves look familiar. And it's like, sure, you got some Spider-Man in the mix, but that's true for every version of Venom. But just after that, he's like, I could swear I've seen who's ever inside that symbiote, and recently. And he goes on to more or less say whoever this all-new Venom is, there's someone he's already seen in this courtroom. Which right there just goes on to solidify the validity of the 4 suspects mentioned earlier. Because now the question of who the all-new Venom is, it's being narrowed down to the people who are in this courtroom. But going forward, all new Venom starts to just web these guys up. And when he does, Dr. McNeil makes the observation like, yeah, okay, Venom's webbing's always been stronger than Spider-Man's ever since the black suit, but now it's like it's even stronger. And I'll admit, it has me wondering if he knows that symbiote webbing is actually symbiote feces. Because I mean, hey, it might help him figure out who all new Venom is. Because all he would have to do is ask everyone who was in the courtroom who's been eating corn. But no, seriously, when it gets to the point where the webbing's not enough, they ask all new Venom, what else do they got? And it's right there where Venom just flips one of these guys into the other who still has webbing on them. And they're like, I've got judo. Which once again is another bit of information for Dr. McNeil to take just before him, Forson, and the others translocate out of there. And just before they leave, Forson makes his threats to all new Venom, but Venom's more or less like, yeah, okay, like how you gonna make threats while you're running away? And following this, Venom leaves. And it takes us right back into that whodunit situation, because just after all new Venom leaves, Rick, Robbie, and Luke show up. And they're all more or less looking at each other like, where were you this whole time? Because Robbie tells Rick like, hey, wasn't you supposed to go find a cop? And Rick's just like, never found one. So he asks Robbie like, you were looking for one too, right? And when they look at Luke, he's just like, I got punched out of the building. I know that's not exactly an alibi, but you know. So it's like for each one of these guys, they were all gone when Venom was here, and none of them can vouch for their whereabouts. And I mean, you also got the case of Madame Masque, who's still gone. Like, I mean, it'd be really dumb if she came back. But with how everything went down here, and it all happened so fast, But with how everything went down, it's almost like we're being led to believe that it's either Luke, Robbie, or Madame Masque, with Rick Jones saying the least obvious phrases thus far. And in a way, that has me thinking that it's more likely to be him. Because I mean, look at Mayor Luke Cage, he's practically wearing the all-new Venom colors. So it's like, is that a little too on the nose? But following this, the next thing we do is head into the epilogue, where we initially pick up with Mary Jane Watson, who for a little while now has been the hero known as Jackpot, as well as Paul Rabin, who's MJ's new boyfriend from an alternate universe, as well as her guy in the chair. And I went more into depth on their history when we were talking about the Venom War Spider-Man tie-in, so I'm not gonna go through all that again here, but what's more important is the fact that Dylan's here with them. And right off the bat, we see that Dylan's being mad disrespectful to Paul here, and for reasons that are beyond me. But as it turns out, Dylan's been studying the news footage, and he noticed that 4 people left when the all-new Venom arrived, with those 4 people being Luke Cage, Rick Jones, Robbie Robertson, and Madame Masque. And it's right there where Dylan's like, one of these people has the Venom symbiote, my symbiote, and I'm not gonna stop until I get Venom back. And I gotta say, it's a really fun setup for what's to come, because for Dylan, the son of Venom, the Prince in Black, who's now the detective, I imagine this story is setting us up for some nice surprises. Because I'm curious to see, with this all new Venom still having the gold, much like what we saw in Venom War with Anti-Carnage, I'm curious to see what this means for all new Venom. Like, are we gonna see some chaos magic? Did this end up saving the Venom symbiote once he created some distance from Carnage and the others? Will it circle back around to Loki and what's going on in Immortal Thor? I've got so many questions, and I got a feeling we're gonna get some of those answers in the coming months. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.